Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, you know, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. That should brighten your day a little. Actually, a lot. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Attention! You're listening to the Todd Huff Radio Show, America's home for conservative, not bitter talk radio. Be advised that the content of this program has been documented to prevent and even cure liberalism, and listening may cause you to lean to the right. Here's your conservative, but not bitter host, Todd Huff.
Yes, my friends, conservative, not bitter indeed. It's my pleasure to be with you here today on America's Home for Conservative, Not Bitter Talk. I'm your host, the one and only Todd Huff. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to continue talking about what Rachel Maddow said on her program Monday night in reference to the destructive tornadoes that went through much of this part of the country, Kentucky, St. Louis. We had some storms here, and we had some tornadoes in Indiana. I saw a tornado in Bloomington. I saw a tornado in Linton. We were kind of on the northern edge, from what I could tell, of this system. But what the place that it really hit hard was Kentucky. St. Louis got some bad weather as well. And so in the clip I played last hour, Rachel Maddow basically suggested, or was seeming to suggest, that the budget cuts that Trump is trying to implement in the federal government is causing these things to happen. When at the same time, as she suggested that in the first part of her report, she concluded by saying that that's not the case. That there's no evidence for that. In fact, I'm just going to play this again. I'm going to play this again so that I can talk about it in its totality. But it's important to understand that this is how anything that we cut is going to be addressed. Now, again, as I said last hour, there's certainly a point where you can cut something too much. Again, I'm a limited government guy. If you think about my political continuum, the way I think about it on the far left, you have people who want the government to run everything, people to have no liberty. But again, they think that that's best because people are safe, people are happy. They don't have to worry about the being idiots on their own. The government's going to take care of them. Of course, this never happens. The government ends up abusing them, killing them, imprisoning them, putting them in gulags. That's what happened. But that's the far left. They want a heavy hand. They want government managing everything. They want less freedom and more government control. On the far end of the right spectrum, you've got pure anarchy, the opposite of that. Complete opposite of that, to where they say no government is necessary at all. It's ever a free-for-all. And then there's people who are, I think reasonable, who say, look, we can't have pure chaos. There has to be some sort of law and order in a society. There has to be a way to protect ourselves against foreign enemies. And so we want to have the smallest government possible that can do the things that we have tasked it with doing, right? We gave the government a series of tasks to perform through the Constitution. And that's what they're supposed to do. They're not supposed to be doing more than that. They're supposed to stay in their lane, do those jobs, and then we'll give you what you need. Now, if we don't give them enough, then you can certainly say that is a mistake. And at some point it is a mistake. But the government has grown so much, the likelihood that that's the case, in my mind, is statistically zero. The government, the idea that there's no waste in a single department, and I'm not even saying because someone is just taking advantage. I'm just saying because we're human. I'm saying human nature on its own tells me that we could be doing the same amount with less. I believe that firmly. I think that that is undeniable. Now, there's a point where, of course, the cuts are too much. You can no longer do what you say you're going to do, right? What the government has been tasked with doing. So that is the point here that I want to get to, because it's important to be able to understand this, because anytime, listen, if we fall victim to this, if we don't push back on this, then this will be weaponized against us. We'll never be able to cut anything. By this logic, if you cut a penny from the budget and something happens, someone can say, well, I tell you what, if we didn't cut that penny. See, I have witnessed over the course of my life, as one who has paid attention, studied the government, and watched how politicians spend things, how the media spends things. I have watched how that has been already weaponized against us, because they have such an entitlement mentality, the folks inside the government, that they know how to work us. I saw this as a person on the school board back 20 years ago when I was a school board member. I've shared this before. Every year there was a built-in 1%, I think it was 1%. That's not a lot. I'm just saying it's the truth. There was a built-in 1% salary increment for teachers. 1% every year. It was built in. Then you would go and negotiate with the new money. You would have a 2-year contract. So every year you would negotiate a 2-year contract. So much deception that came from this. In fact, the union, not every teacher, but certainly sometimes the union, if you got past that 1-year mark, they would say we're working without a contract. But that wasn't true. In fact, it's illegal to work without a contract. What it was that they're used to getting a contract every year, and that contract is for 2 years. So if you get past the first 12 months, you still have another year of the contract. And the reason they do that is to give some buffer for contract negotiations. Let's say that you can't come to an agreement. You don't want to only have, a 12-month contract when you might need some room to adjust it. But every year we would have new money, and we would say, this is how much we can allocate to this. We can do whatever you want with it. We can put it towards benefits. We can put it towards salaries. You tell us. And oftentimes what would happen is, if a teacher got a 2% raise, which these were common numbers back in my day, a 2% raise, they would report that we have a 2% raise. But that wasn't entirely true, because they got a 3% raise because there was a 1-year annual increment that was already built in. Now, they might say, well, we were getting that anyway. And I understand, but to pretend that it wasn't a real 3% is mathematically dishonest. And that's what I'm saying has happened on a large scale in our government for a long time. You have people who they will ask for money for the next budget. And if you keep the budget the same, let's say for simple math, someone gets $1 million 1 year and $1 million the next, they in the government would start saying that their budget has been cut because they had these built-in increments that they were basically expecting. You're going to have a whatever percent increase every year. And so they would do the same thing that the teachers union would do with the salary. They would say, well, we're the baseline budget. This was called baseline budgeting. So the baseline moved up because they were expecting or anticipating or were promised some percentage of growth. And then the growth or the cut in the budget would be factored from that number. So if you kept the budget the same, it would be considered a budget cut because they were expecting a budget increase. And these games create intentional deception. I'm not saying there's not an argument to be made for the position of these other sides. I'm saying pretending like it's not real money is not being forthcoming at all. And so the same is true here when it comes to what's happening with the National Weather Service. First of all, there were cuts. I believe, as I understood it, there's about 11.5% of the people in the National Weather Service who have either retired, taken Trump's buyout deal, whatever, 11.5%. 11.5% of the workforce of the National Weather Service has been cut, and she, Rachel Maddow, acts as though life as we know it is going to end. And I'm going to play this again because some of you may not have heard this in the first segment. She does tone it down towards the end, but she basically implies that these budget cuts could potentially cause people to die, which is what they do, unfortunately. So, friends, pause there really quickly. Let me tell you, if you don't have a MyPillow pillow, I think it's something you should consider getting. I tell you that there's 2 reasons I like this pillow. I use the pillow every night. 2 main reasons for me that I like it is because A, I'm a side sleeper, I got a big head, and I've got broad shoulders. And when I sleep on my side, it is a recipe for a neck getting out of alignment. And that can create problems for my neck in the morning. And so the MyPillow has this adjustable fill that fits in between that big head, broad shoulders as I sleep on my side, and it holds my head in place. I like that, number 1. Number 2, I like that it has cooling technology. I've shared with you before, I am a person who hates sleeping hot. I don't care to be hot during the day. I mean, sometimes it's annoying, but it's not that big of a deal. I'm just, for me, it's more about airflow. But at night, my goodness, I feel like my body temperature rises or something. I just have to be cool to get a good night's sleep. And if your pillow heats up with your body heat, it is not easy to do. I don't think my wife understands this because she's not a hot sleeper. In fact, she's often cold because I crank the temperature down and it makes it chilly. But for those of you who are hot sleepers, you know what I mean. So consider checking out MyPillow. I think it's a great pillow for those 2 reasons in particular. MyPillow.com is where you can go to see their pillow options and also a whole wide variety of other products as well, including MyPillow slippers, which Oz in particular loves. She has hers on right now. MyPillow.com, promo code Todd will get you discounts on just about it, probably every product, but I'm going to say just about just in case there's something on there that's not on sale. MyPillow.com, promo code Todd. All right. MyPillow.com, promo code Todd. I feel like I said that wrong. Sorry if I did. All right, here's the clip from Rachel Maddow. Again, I played this last segment, but I want to talk about this, and I didn't get through the whole clip. So this is what she has to say about the National Weather Service and what Trump is doing by cutting the size and scope of government.
And it's not just the agency that responds to severe weather that's under strain right now. It's also the agency that tells us what the weather is, that predicts and tracks and warns us about severe weather. As tornadoes struck Missouri on Friday, very, very severe storms also battered Kentucky. One tornado in southeastern Kentucky killed 19 people. The government agency that provides weather data for every weather station and every weather app and monitors storms and sends out emergency alerts for all kinds of severe weather is the National Weather Service. And the National Weather Service in Kentucky has 3 offices. None of them is fully staffed because of Trump's cuts to the National Weather Service. The office that...
Let me pause that real quick. I know I can't get through one of these without chiming in. It's about halfway through. But she says there's 3 offices in Kentucky. It's just interesting to me why I don't know how to quite verbalize this. So bear with me because I may stub my toe here as I try to say this the way I think it needs to be said. But why are we assuming that 3 offices are what we need? See, so what if someone so she says that nobody's fully staffed. Well, in Trump's world, they are fully staffed. In Trump's world, they were overstaffed. And she's saying that they're not fully staffed. Well, she's using the previous administration's understanding as to what that should be. Trump's saying the government is way out of control, bloated, and it's not efficient. And we can do the same job by cutting the workforce, even dramatically, because the government is not productive. So let me ask this. If there was someone when they decided, whenever this was, there's going to be 3 National Weather Service offices in Kentucky. If someone in the room said, I think there should be 4, but they said, no, there's 3, should Rachel Maddow have said that the Biden administration did not have full capacity of the National Weather Service? You see, these are the kinds of tricks and games that I don't like at all. because she's trying to make a point that Trump's cuts are leading to people's deaths. Trump's cuts are leading to people being put in danger, if nothing else. That's what she wants them to believe. As I talked about last hour, if the data is out there, there are more people today that are warning people on social media. There are more tools today that get you warnings. I mean, cell phones will, if there's a major weather problem in your area, you're going to get basically the equivalent of an Amber Alert on your phone. When those things go off, I mean, you can't ignore those. Remember a few years ago, we had some alert that went off at like 2 or 3 in the morning. I don't remember what that was even for, but it woke everybody up. That's for darn sure. Probably wouldn't have woken my son up. He's a deep sleeper, but you know what I mean. But the point here is, why is it that they're not fully staffed? Maybe they were overstaffed before, because she's leading up. It seems like what she's saying so far is that there weren't enough resources to tell people that a tornado was coming, and so they perished, which is a terrible thing. And by the way, if that's what happened, that needs to be addressed. We don't want that to be the case, but if you listen to this full segment, she actually said there's no evidence at all to suggest that's even remotely what happened. She continues here.
Office that handles forecasts for eastern Kentucky, where Friday's tornado struck, it's short 7 staff members, which means that, among other things, the office no longer has an overnight staff.
Except that's not true.
Because, again, obviously, we would hope that severe weather has the decency to only strike during business hours. At any of the 3 offices in Kentucky, there is no meteorologist in charge now. Now, to be clear, we don't know if those staffing shortages in Kentucky had any effect on the ability of the Weather Service to manage and predict and send out appropriate alerts about Friday's storms.
So why are you talking about it?
There's no reason to think that the Weather Service was anyway at fault.
No reason to think that the Weather Service was at fault for what happened. No reason to think any of this. I'm just saying these things because Trump is president. That's what she should say. She continues
what happened in terms of the devastating impact of those storms. The agency says the Jackson office was staffed overnight for that one night on Friday because of
I pointed that out as well. She said that there was no overnight staff, but yet the agency staffed it overnight because they could see the bad weather was coming. Look at that, Rachel. So are they still understaffed because they didn't have 24/7? I talked about this last segment. I don't want to go through that again, but this is deceptive. This is deceiving. This is trying to assign blame to Trump for something that she just admitted she has no business doing. But she continues here.
The expected severe weather. Officials, including Kentucky's Democratic governor, say they've seen no evidence that the Weather Service performance was impaired in this instance. But even if it wasn't in this instance,
even if it wasn't,
these kinds of cuts just systematically reduce our ability to cope with something as inescapable and inevitable as severe weather. And did I mention that hurricane season starts in 2 weeks?
Okay, hurricane season starts in 2 weeks. Can I say something about hurricane season, by the way? Listen, I don't live in Florida. I don't live on the Gulf Coast. Obviously been to Florida a lot and have people down there that have to deal with this sort of stuff. And hurricanes, why the path may not be known, there is a tremendous amount of warning with a hurricane. A hurricane is a far cry from a supercell tornado, right? A tornado that pops up from a supercell that's out in front of a line of storms that's usually more powerful. It's more isolated, so there's more energy. The rest of the storm system isn't pulling energy from it. Everything's being fed into this storm. It's got usually more of the heat of the day. The sunshine still shining where it's going. It's increasing in power. In fact, some of those storms that I talked about that hit me as a kid, as a young man, the hailstorm in particular, I'm pretty sure that was a supercell back in 96. But this hurricane prediction, how many people do we need to tell us the path of a hurricane? I mean, this all sounds, again, with the slightest bit of scrutiny, you can begin to undermine her condescension, her arrogance, her self-righteousness here. But she wants to blame Trump. It is so baked into how these folks think they cannot help themselves. Now, I want to tell you here Tornado went through St. Louis, Missouri. I mentioned that in the last hour, but in particular here, we have some problems in the city of St. Louis when it comes to their warning system. Their warning system didn't work properly. But if you listen to the mayor of San Francisco, it doesn't sound like it had anything whatsoever to do with President Trump and his budget cuts.
The tornado warning was issued on 2:34 p.m. on Friday. Within minutes, a massive weather system had hit the ground and was decimating our neighborhoods. In those minutes between the warning and the time that we were experiencing a massive weather event, there was a failure, a human failure, a failure in protocol to get the sirens up and running, to let the community know that there was a massive weather event hitting our community. There was a failure of protocol. It was a human failure.
So a couple of things. Number one, she's from the city, so she's talking here about city employees, which she's going to get to. But notice she didn't say that they were understaffed. There was a failure of protocol. People didn't know what they were supposed to do. See, if you're asking me where the government fails most times, it's with things like this. The government has books and shelves of books of rules and protocols that nobody knows. They put a lot of time and money and pride into putting these things together, but they sit back there on the shelf and nobody knows what to do about it. This, to me, is a much more logical explanation as to what the problems are with these severe storms versus Trump's cut too many people from the National Weather Service. The mayor continues here.
This protocol was put in place in 2021. It was not exceptionally clear about whose roles and responsibilities it was to do what. It is now my responsibility and my role to ensure that moving forward, this protocol is crystal clear, and it is. This protocol is calling for our fire department, who is staffed 24 hours a day, to issue those warnings. And from this point forward, the fire department, with whom I have the utmost confidence, is going to be doing that work moving forward. But at the end of the day, this was a human failure. We know that our emergency management system also issued 317 direct messages to the community to let them know. Our sirens are designed to let people know who are outside to take shelter. But at the end of the day, this was a failure. Again, I'm taking full responsibility to make sure that moving forward, the protocol that is in place from this point forward is absolutely crystal clear.
Yeah. So the problem was that they had the rules and the protocol and that they didn't follow it. That's what she said. That's St. Louis. That's just one example here. I don't remember Rachel Maddow mentioning that in her monologue there. Instead, she wants to blame the lack of funds and resources, when in reality, what we're missing in most cases are clarity. What we have in many occasions is mission drift. We're worried about DEI and transgender policies and all this woke crap instead of teaching people how to do their stinking jobs. Gotta take a break, my friends. Quick timeout. Back here in just a minute.
Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you wanna get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome back, my friends. That what I ended last segment with, I think, is one of the biggest problems that we face when the left is in office. They want to focus on anything but their primary responsibility. They want to tinker with our culture. They want to change the way that things work. They want to impact how many men have one job, how many women have another, what the race is or the ethnicity, the identity of the person doing whatever, instead of focusing on making sure people know how to do their jobs. That seems to be a major problem that we have when the left is in charge. When NASA, under the Obama administration, one of NASA's focal points, well, one of their focal points was climate change. Another focal point was combating Islamophobia. Do you remember that? I remember hearing Rush talk about that. What is that? Why is that the job of NASA? What are we doing? I'm not saying that we should be, that the things that the government sometimes wants to change are even bad. Just saying that's not even your job. That's not what you're here to do. If you're NASA, you're supposed to be helping us with space exploration and all of that. If you're with the Department of Homeland Security, you're supposed to be securing the homeland. If you're with ICE, you're supposed to be enforcing customs and immigration. You're supposed to be deporting people. That actually, what's happening right now with ICE is what should have always been happening with ICE. But again, it looks so foreign. It looks so out of the norm because it wasn't the norm. What became the norm was to not enforce the law. And they can get away with not enforcing the law because they're debating whether or not biological men should be able to go to the bathroom to pee with biological women. The world is going on here. How many times has the government let us down? Sometimes in dangerous ways, like this tornado going through St. Louis. And you want to say it's because they don't have enough money, Rachel Maddow, but in reality, they don't have enough focus on the right thing. They have too much on their plate as far as what they want to accomplish. And the things at the top of their list are not the things that are there that they've been tasked to accomplish. Public safety should be at the top of the list, not how many women are on the fire department or whatever it is. Whatever it is, whether or not they've accommodated enough pride festivals in the city. I mean, this stuff is just maddening to me. They do all these things and then they complain about not having enough staff or budget when those things get cut, when in reality they've wasted bukus of dollars trying to do things that weren't even on their list of things to be responsible for. Friends, if you are tired of spending your hard-earned money at businesses that then turn around and support these radical leftist causes that I am talking about, check out Freedom Marketplace. It's a place where you can find conservative businesses that share your values, your principles. It's a searchable database. It is free for you to use. Businesses, by the way, that have vowed not to support leftist candidates or leftist causes. All you have to do is go to freedommarketplace.net, to find a list of good, patriotic businesses pushing in the same direction that you are. Check it out today, freedommarketplace.net. Again, that's freedommarketplace.net. Liberty and business for all, my friends. All right. So, a little bit of a shift of gear. I suppose a bigger shift of gears than what I just suggested. But talking about ICE has led me to this discussion, which has been percolating. It's been in the headlines for a while. We mentioned it, I think, yesterday or Monday. Headline here, thedailyfetch.com. Dem Representative LaMonica McIver facing prison after being charged over ICE facility clash. Written by Jason Walsh at dailyfetch.com. Here's what this says. Representative LaMonica McIver, Democrat from the state of New Jersey, has been charged in connection with a scuffle involving agents at an ICE detention facility in Newark, New Jersey earlier this month. The charges stem from a May 9th incident during a Democratic-led oversight visit to Delaney Hall, raising national attention and political backlash. Acting U.S. Attorney for New Jersey, Alina Habba, wrote in an X post, "Today my office has charged," I read this to you I think yesterday or Monday, "Congresswoman McIver with violation of Title 18 U.S. Code Section 111A.1 for assaulting, impeding, and interfering with law enforcement." That's what Alina Habba said, what she posted on X. She's got a full statement there as well. McIver, hold on here. McIver and other House Democrats demanded to conduct, quote, oversight of the ICE detention facility at Delaney Hall on May 9th. Newark Mayor Ross Baraka was also present during the incident. By the way, he's not being charged. Ross Baraka at one point was being the mayor of Newark, it was being considered as to whether or not he would be charged with trespassing. So what happened was what do they want to do? They want to raise a ruckus. They want to stir it up. They want a big brouhaha. They want a headline. They want some pictures. They want a narrative. They want a story that says this president of the United States does not submit to the congressional oversight. He's a dictator. He's a dictatorial thug, and we got to stop this guy. And so that's how they frame this. And so they look for optics to reflect that. So they go to this ICE detention facility called Delaney Hall in New Jersey, and they cause a scene. They're not following the typical protocol. But again, this is by the way, is from the same playbook that they used when they were protesting outside of the Department of Education facilities, when they were saying they couldn't be let in and so forth, when in reality, if they had made an appointment, they could have gotten in. So they're not following the normal procedures. They certainly have oversight abilities, but you just can't do whatever you want. I mean, this is a facility that needs to be secure. There's certain processes and so forth. And so no one was trying to keep these folks out. They were just trying to follow a process. And so they wanted to make this into something that it wasn't. It turned into kind of an intense standoff. People were getting pushed and all this sort of stuff. But she's been charged. She, the representative, has been charged. And what do they want you to take away from that? They want you to take away from that Trump is targeting his political enemies, his political adversaries. They will ignore, by the way, that Biden targeted Trump, that the deep state targeted Trump for a long time through lawfare, I should say, which is a form of warfare where you go after your political opponents. And now they're pretending like Trump's the one that's done this. Now, I am on record. Listen, I don't want anybody targeting political opponents. I don't want anyone making up excuses, giving justification for doing things that are clearly outside the norms of how we should be treating those in the political opposition. I'm 100% against that. That should go without saying. That never ends, by the way. If we allow this to happen, I'm not suggesting it is, but if we allow it to happen, then it's going to continue. The pendulum is going to continue to swing, and there's no force that will try to stop it. The only force that can stop it is when we're in power, is if we stop doing what they've been doing to us. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't then enforce the law. See, for some people who don't want to understand nuance or context, they want to say, well, you either imprison your political opponents or you don't. Well, in one respect, okay, but in another, doesn't context matter? I mean, if I want to go and make up a narrative about somebody, if I want to, blow up the charges and misrepresent the facts and change the law and do things that have never been done before, and many of those things, by the way, were what happened to Trump with how these leftist DAs and even Jack Smith went after him. That's one thing. But if someone clearly violates the law, just as they shouldn't be targeted for their political affiliation being in the minority political party, they also shouldn't be given a free pass to do whatever they want. So DHS has given to Fox News ICE body cam video. This was tweeted out. I don't know how to pronounce this guy's. I've seen him before. Bill, I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Starts with an M. Anyway, DHS has provided Fox News ICE body cam video from the altercation at the Delaney Hall detention facility yesterday. This was back a couple of weeks, about 10 days ago, May 10th. They say the video clearly shows Representative LaMonica shoving/elbowing her way past a DHS agent to get past the gate and into the property. So that's the reason. So it's not just because she was there and it was contentious. It was because she was assaulting, according to video, according to what's being charged and alleged here. That's the reason why. Can't get physical with ICE and expect to get away with it. Quick time out, my friends. Back here in just a minute.
Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. That should brighten your day a little. Actually, a lot. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Welcome back, my friends. So the left wants you to believe that she was targeted because she's in the opposition party. In fact, James Carville wants you to believe she's targeted because she's black. I'll tell you what, it is just, I get so sick of this stuff. You can disagree after watching the video, but to say that the video doesn't at least show that what Alina Habba is saying would be dishonest. I mean, there's evidence. Now, maybe it's not enough evidence for a conviction. I mean, all that stuff is yet to be determined, and we'll see where this thing goes. But this, of course, this whole discussion is designed to make it appear that Trump is targeting his political opposition. That's what they want you to think. They want you to think Trump dictator. Friends, I got something I want to share with you here really quickly, and that is a way that you can take care of your heart's health. Heart disease is a big killer, a big threat in this country today, and diet and exercise are the places that you should start. But in addition to that, you might want to consider taking a natural supplement that has been scientifically proven to lower cholesterol. It's good for your heart. It may be able to lower your cholesterol, my friends. This is not a prescription. This is not a medication. You don't have doctor's visits, none of that stuff. All you have to do is take 2 of these Salty soft gels a day. It's all it takes to help your heart's health and potentially lower your cholesterol as it has for other people. So if you're worried about your heart's health, if you want to stay healthy, stay active, stay in this political fight that we find ourselves in, we need you healthy. This is one way that you can take care of your health and be around for the long haul. Salty.com is the website, SOLTEA, Salty.com. Promo code Todd is going to save you 50% on your purchase and get you free shipping as well. Salty.com, promo code Todd. That's how you get the special, my friends. 2 Salty soft gels a day. That's all it takes. The only thing you have to lose are those high cholesterol points. All right, so I mentioned Jimmy Carville said that the reason that Representative McIver is being charged is because of her race. Because of her race. So we got, this is predictable stuff. And again, it's annoying. I roll my eyes. It's just really preposterous, but that's out there. And then we've got Representative McIver also trying to defend and excuse herself from what has been happening. She said that she was on with somebody. Who was she on with? I had it in my stack of stuff. I know that she was on and she was trying to excuse herself. She said that Alina Habba was trying to get her to basically sign a paper admitting to doing things that she said she didn't do. And then in the interview, I just got a few minutes left here, so I can't play this anyway. But in the interview, the interviewer asks her, Representative McIver, what are some of the things that she's accused you of doing? And she couldn't give specific examples. Again, they're not used to, right? They're not used to having to answer any questions. They have a narrative to push. The media is supposed to comply. The media is not supposed to ask any questions, any particulars. Who needs to know specifics, right? We're dealing with the left here. We're dealing with cries and calls that somebody's racist. In fact, I'll read from this one really fast. James Carville, Trump administration charged LaMonica McIver because she's black. Democratic strategist James Carville accused the Trump administration of racism after charging Representative LaMonica McIver with assault, claiming it was due to her race. Carville said, "This is my personal opinion. I think they went after her. I think her race has something to do with it. I'll just flat out say that. It's my point of view." Host Ari Melber, this is MSNBC, said, "You're of the view that you're asserting that the Trump administration or DOJ is targeting her racially. Why do you assert that?" Carville then said, "Because that's what they're about, and they're trying to show it's us against them." Sorry, that's my attempt to do the Jimmy Carville New Orleans accent there, that southern accent. They talk about, he says, the blood of America and the poisoning of blood, and they talk about this kind of stuff. Again, let me be very clear. I don't have any proof. So, you know why he's doing this? I love this, by the way. But if you were to ask me, he says, do I think that's what happened? So he's gotten the memos. He's seen how the Trump administration is not playing games with the media. See, if you say it's my opinion, if you say I think, I can say I think James Carville is a lying lunatic. I can say that. But if I make a factual statement, James Carville is a liar, if I can't back it up with some evidence, then I can be charged with, you could have some defamation charges that you have to deal with. And so the administration, and Republicans at large, and they've fought back on this. In fact, if you see all of these retractions that have been given on networks and so forth, on The View, for example, I remember one of them on The View, you could tell they got a phone call during one of their segments, and Sonny Hostin had to make some sort of a clarification to avoid having a defamation charge leveled against them. That's why James Carville said, "I want to be clear. Let me be very clear." He says, "I don't have any proof." Of course you don't have any proof. It's a preposterous idea, Jimmy Carville. But he says, "But if you ask me, do I think that's what happened? Yes, I think that's what happened." That's what he says, my friends. So, here we go. The same old card that's being played time and time and time again. I got Scott Jennings versus Julie Rodzinski. I can't get to that. That's something that's good as well. I just don't have time. Maybe tomorrow or as the program comes together in the days ahead. But I'm simply out of time here, my friends. Oh, I also have stuff about the left is celebrating Biden's cancer diagnosis. What a bunch of losers. Gotta go. SDG.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.